It's still TMI on the ITV network. We're going straight to our first major talking point on the show today, looking at the United Nations at 80, impact on governance, impact on development. And our resource person, our guest analyst is Neville Obahedo, who is a political scientist, a lecturer from the Department of Political Science, University of Benin. Mr. Neville, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me, ITV. Good morning, viewers and listeners at home and all over the world.
Give us your, insights into how the UN came about and how has it been able to live up to the expectations of the people of the world up until now, because we are seeing new issues emerging and coming to the front burner. We're seeing a UN that is divided in a sense along religious line and other issues that are bedeviling it at the moment.
Well, the world that is as it is presently constituted is a world that has passed through phases. The first phase, after the concert of states and the development of countries and their transformation into what we call states today. The first international system that emerged was referred to as the League of Nations. And the League of Nations was to put an end to crisis, interstate crisis, domestic crisis, violation of human rights, the need for international cooperation and diplomacy. But because of foreign policy objectives of certain states, because of individual preferences of certain leaders, and the attempt to extend their leadership to other nation states that were supposed to be sovereign, a world war broke out, which is referred to as the First World War. That world war was supposed to be the first and last war of the world. But because of the cream of leaders at that time, things fell apart again, and another war broke out, which is the Second World War. Now, the Second World War is the last world war that will be fought on an international scale. There will be other world wars, even though they have not been pronounced as Third World War, Fourth World War, as the case may be. So the Second World War came into existence as a result of the determination of leaders who were ruling the world at that time. One of them was the President of the United States then, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Prime Minister of Britain at that time, Winston Churchill, the leader of the defunct USSR, Joseph Stalin, Chinese leader then, Chiang Kai-shek, and several other persons. They came together to say, okay, let us put an end to all wars, and let us establish a world of international cooperation, a world where we can help to negotiate and restore peace in conflict zones and so on. And so in 1945, the second international system or international governmental system was established, which goes with the name the United Nations Organization, which can easily be referred to as the United Nations. So the UN, like its predecessor, which is the League of Nations, was to help foster unity among nation states and ensure that the dignity of a human person is maintained, there's respect for human rights, there's good governance across all countries, and there's peace and tranquility that can help nations of the world to pursue development. 80 years after, questions are being raised about the impact of this organization, which is the UN, and its impact on international development. And when we talk of international development, we're also talking of human development, because the international arena cannot develop as a space without the development of the human person. And so the United Nations came into existence in 1945. From then till now, the United States, for instance, has produced about 16 presidents within the period. We have had Lyndon Johnson, we have had J.F. Kennedy, we have had Jimmy Carter, we have had Ronald Reagan, we have had Bill Clinton, up to Donald Trump. And the world from that time to now has changed on several fronts. But the United Nations has not changed. Change is in terms of its bureaucratic setup, change in the sense of the capability of nation states to vote, and their vote will count and change the kaleidoscope of international events. France was a leading member that established the United Nations. And that was the period that General Charles de Gaulle was the president. From Charles de Gaulle to Emmanuel Macron, we have had presidents like Georges Pompidou, we have had Giscard d'Estaing, we have had François Mitterrand, we have had Nicolas Sarkozy, Jacques Chirac, and so on. The world has changed. The world of France has changed, and the world, international global system, has also changed. Has the United Nations changed? Where a former France president played a leading role in its establishment? The answer is no. Then we now come to the USSR. Then Joseph Stalin was there when the United Nations was established. After him, we have had other persons like Nikita Khrushchev, Leonid Brezhnev, Yuri Andropov, Konstantin Chernenko, and Mikhail Gorbachev before the advent of Boris Yeltsin and the dissolution of the USSR. Yes, in a way you can say the USSR has changed because the republics that came together to form the USSR, they dismembered, they are now independent states. But what the United Nations represents is it reflecting in the life of citizens of these countries, of the default USSR that are now Commonwealth of Independent States. As we speak, Russia is now the country representing the USSR at the United Nations, taking the veto position of Russia. And Russia is at war with a former member of the default USSR, which is Ukraine. For a number of years now, the war has been on. The question then is, has the purpose of the United Nations that led Joseph Stalin from the USSR to support the creation of the United Nations, has it been accomplished around that axis? The list is long. Go to Britain. You see that Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of Britain that time. Along the line, we have had the likes of Margaret Thatcher, had the likes of John Major, we had the likes of all the kind of Prime Minister that we have up to now. The question is, has the interest of the United Nations, as envisaged by Winston Churchill and the leaders of the world, has it been accomplished in Britain and the countries that Britain presided over at that time in the name of colonial rule? So when we talk about the United Nations, as we speak, the world has changed, but the United Nations has not changed. And because of the inability or the refusal of the United Nations to change, the world has remained in crisis. And the world has not seen the development that is expected to see, because it was during this period that the world has been classified to be the first world, the second world, the third world, and even the fourth world. As we speak, development of this world in terms of advancements in technology, in terms of political stability, in terms of economic prosperity, is on one side, the global north. And the global south, consisting of the second world, the third world, and the fourth world, or even the fifth world, they are in crisis. That is an assignment for the United Nations.
Interesting. I like the fact that you said the United Nations hasn't changed. But there are those who will say that the United Nations has changed in the sense that the original ideology that drove the coming together of the League of Nations, metamorphosing into the United Nations, has completely changed. Today, we're talking about issues has to do with depopulation. We're talking about issues that has to do with transhumanism. We're talking about issues that has to do with LGBTQ rights. We're talking about issues that has to do with pandemics. We've seen organizations like the World Health Organization and several of these international organizations who are more or less, affiliated to the United Nations, carrying out agendas that seems to suggest that this is the new direction of the UN. In a sense, like the UN has been hijacked by some of these organizations like the World Health Organization. I mean, we've seen Donald Trump coming out, frontally and vocally to criticize all of these activities. What do you make of this?
Well, my point of this is that, first and foremost, the United Nations is a body. It's a body of subsystems. And the World Health Organization is part of that system. Now, one thing we need to understand in a complex world, complex global world like ours, is that the world politics is driven by realism. Realism is a concept that is being used in international politics and international relations to explain the fact that nation states seek their own national interest. They pursue their goals and they try to defend their own sovereignty in the midst of the complex nature of the world and in a world that is full of anarchy. Now, if we have that at the back of our mind, we should then know that what we refer to as national interest may turn out to be the interest of a tiny few, of a minority, or an oligarchy. That oligarchy may now control a state. The oligarchy may now control institutions. So if Donald Trump is saying that the World Health Organization is being controlled excuse me, by some persons or unseen hands, it shows that Donald Trump is not ready to play the politics. He's not ready to engage himself in understanding the politics of the world and not to assert the position of the United States in it. Because the United Nations, as I said, is made up of subsystems. One of the systems, the subsystem is the World Bank. Another subsystem is the International Monetary Fund. We have UNICEF. We have UN, UNTAD. There are so many branches of the United Nations. Now, when we talk of the World Bank and the IMF, these are Bretton Woods systems that are being controlled from the metropolis. Where is the role of the United States in it? Donald Trump should know it. So if Donald Trump is not able to assert the part and the influence of the United States on the World Health Organization, it is unfortunate for him.
Okay, I saw a video where the president of Argentina, he is of the opinion that the UN has derailed. In promoting democracy, for example, the UN is not recognizing that democracy as practiced in some of these Western world may not just be applicable stricto sensu like we have in other climes. And when you're not able to, domesticate it, hook, line, and sinker, it's as though you are anti-democracy or anti-people and all. So these are perspectives that are coming into the front burner that seems to give the impression that, well, to a large extent, maybe the United Nations has outlived its value. I mean, Nigeria, for example, is also saying, well, we want to be part of the United Nations Security Council. President Ruto of Kenya is saying that, look, Africa has the highest cases of conflicts, yet we don't have any representation in the United Nations Security Council. If they are not ready to do that, he is going to lead the mobilization of Africa and other countries that will pull out of the United Nations. What do you make of all of this?
You see, it is not enough for leaders of countries that are trapped within the third world, or what I prefer to refer to as the global south, to prepare speeches and go to the United Nations General Assembly and deliver the speech and then go back home, or be applauded by some other persons in the name of this person made a very powerful speech. In the first instance, the ideas contained in the speech, were they ideas from the president or the ideas of the speech writers of the president? President Ruto, I salute his courage for making such bold statement. But the other day, a lot of people died in Kenya because he went to obtain loan or ratify the loan they were going to take from an international organization. And people protested in Kenya. And several of them died before he came to reverse himself. Now, he should have studied the international system and know how the United Nations and other international governmental organizations should change Africa, including Kenya, before even gunning for the loan that caused the death of some persons in Kenya. Now, there are several other African leaders who have gone to the United Nations to make statements, powerful statements, more than the one that President Ruto of Kenya is making. His statement reminds me of the statements that were made on the floor of the United Nations by the likes of Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, Kwame Nkrumah Sagifo of Ghana, Pero Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. Even as recent as the statement that were made by Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. The list is long of leaders who have gone there to make statements. Now, making the statement without coming to right the wrongs in your country cannot attract attention of powerful nations to your country. Now, you made mention of Luis Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil. If you check the democracy that is being practiced in Latin America and the Caribbean, it's different from the democracy that we are practicing in Africa here. And it's different from the democracy that is being practiced in Europe and America. Now, Bolsonaro was the president who took over from Lula da Silva. He put Lula da Silva in prison. That is the way most countries in that region practice democracy. They always make sure they put their predecessor in office in prison because they believe that if the person is outside and is having the opportunity to contest election, he may win. So he has come back now to become president, and he has put Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro, in prison. And he made that statement at the United Nations that part of his achievement is to, while trying to bring good governance to his country, is to put his predecessor in prison.
Okay, let me pause it there. We'll take a quick commercial break. TMI continues in just a moment. Stay with us. Thanks again for rejoining us on the program TMI on the ITV network. Nabil Abagado, our guest, who is a political analyst, a lecturer from the University of Benin Political Science Department, is still with us here looking at the UN at 80 and its impact on global challenges. Nabil, let's come back to you and look at it from the fact that so much is going on globally. I mean, the peace that the UN was set up to tackle is worsening by the day, is getting larger, is getting bigger, more and more conflicts are coming on board, and the US is just there. I mean, the UN is just there, not able to live up to expectations. Incidentally, like you analyzed in your foundational statement, those who were part and parcel of the formation of the UN, they are even getting themselves embroiled in some of these conflicts. What does the future really hold? I mean, post 80, yeah.
What the future holds for this world after 80 years of the United Nations is a concerted effort, because we have had at the beginning of the United Nations up to around 1991, we used to have a bipolar world where we have two sources of international power. That was the era of the Cold War between the United States and the United States and our allies, and the USSR and our allies. Now that war has ended, and today we have a multipolar world. The United Nations should understand that now that we have multipolar world, the permanent membership of the United Nations need to now spread to the sources of power around the world. There must, not that there should, there must be a permanent seat for Africa, if not 2 permanent seats, because we have about 54 countries in Africa. So I'm sure in that case, Africa as a continent is even the continent with highest number of members in that place. Then we have a permanent seat for Asia countries. Then maybe permanent seat for the Latin America countries. So that the issues that are affecting the world, that are affecting the world, they are coming from different parts of the world. Like has been said by Ruto and others, we have so many conflicts in Africa. Domestic conflict and interstate conflict. And the United Nations will be taking decisions that will affect this conflict, either bringing them to an end or prolonging them. And no African member state is there to veto decision. Then that means that the crisis will continue for a very long time. We have the crisis of the Middle East that will be there for years. No permanent seat from any of the countries in that area. And then, when decisions are to be taken on how to bring the crisis in the Middle East to an end, the decision will now come back to 5 permanent members of the United Nations. And some are interested in the matter. They are interested parties that will decide. In that case, you cannot have a peaceful resolution of the conflict in line with the dreams of the fathers of the United Nations. And if you go to Asia, you see that in Myanmar, former Burma, there's domestic crisis that is spilling over to other countries there, and the United Nations is not able to do anything there because permanent members of the United Nations, some of them are interested in the crisis, either because they have economic benefit from Myanmar or because when we use the devil's theory, the military industrial complex, they have weapons to sell to both parties to the conflict. So when things like this are happening in a world that is seeking for international cooperation and end to conflict and wars, and then you know that the people who are preaching that peace, who are preaching the international cooperation, who are preaching for fundamental human rights and the rest of them, they themselves the violators of such rights. As we speak, let me take the case of Nigeria for instance. We argue in post science through the political economy approach. We look at cases of underdevelopment. You discover that raw materials are taken from the global south and taken to the global north, and then the raw materials are processed at a cheaper rate. They are extracted from here. Then the finished products are brought back here at higher rate. So we are saying the United Nations want to put an end to underdevelopment, either through Millennium Development Goal or through Sustainable Development Goal. Now, if you are taking raw materials from a continent or from a part of the world, and you take to your place at a cheaper rate, you process and send the goods back to the place you extracted the raw material at a higher rate, what are you doing? You are perpetrating underdevelopment
in those countries.
Yes, and then you are saying you are clamoring for Millennium Development Goals. You are clamoring for Sustainable Development Goal. And then, in the case of Nigeria, as I said earlier, we have crude oil. We have to take crude oil from Nigeria at a cheaper rate to Europe, go and refine it and bring it back. We have refineries that are not working. And the United Nations is not concerned about the economy of member states. And if there are crises in the economy of member states, it must have spillover effect. The other day, I was listening to one documentary about this war, and I learned that one of the reasons why bread is expensive in Nigeria is because of, number one, that much of the wood that we use to produce bread in Nigeria comes from Ukraine, and Ukraine is at war with Russia. So Why is the United Nations not concerned about how we can produce
wheat locally
wheat in Nigeria? They have office in Nigeria here. By liaising with the Nigerian government to say, bring development to your country through these processes. So, let's say the world will still be here till the next 80 years. Some of us will not be here by that time. We pray for a better world and a better United Nations.
Okay, they talk about clamor for representation at the United Nations Security Council from Africa. Nigeria is interested.
That Nigeria is interested. Well, if Nigeria want to be interested, I know that Nigeria is interested. I know that Nigeria will be clamoring to be a permanent member of the United Nations. The first thing I will say to Nigerian leaders, because I hear sometimes the president, whether this president or previous president, they will say the environment in Nigeria is climate or is propitious for direct or foreign direct investment or direct foreign investment, that people should come and invest in Nigeria. I laugh at such leaders because they fail to learn from the Southeast Asia tigers. When we say Southeast Asia, they are economies of Thailand, of Malaysia, of Singapore, of South Korea, of Taiwan, and so on. These countries, they adopted a strategy of development, statewide development. And so you can refer to them as developmental state. They created enabling environment that investors saw in those countries and went to invest there. So they made sure there was an end to corruption, or corruption was reduced to the barest minimum. They made sure that there was security. They made sure that there was stability in their country. Okay. That will not threaten the business interests of something. So they were moving from periphery country to semi-periphery country, and they were moving from semi-periphery countries to core countries before the Southeast Asia crisis that came to crumble their economy because of powerful interests outside of that region. Now, if Nigeria wants to be a permanent member of the United Nations, Nigeria should do the right thing. Nigerian leaders should do the right thing.
And what is that right thing?
Number one, there is so much insecurity in our land. The other day, an American soldier was, American citizen, I cannot remember whether it's soldier or a
citizen that was kidnapped.
Was kidnapped. And the rescue mission was planned in America and was executed in Nigeria. And the person was ill and healthy. I was taken out of this country. That technology, we have the means to acquire it and make sure that those that terrorize our country on the highways, in our forests, are dealt with. There's no governor in Nigeria that does not receive at least 500 million as security vote. That security vote, officially and constitutionally, is unaccounted for. Yeah. So you can use that money to invest on security. We see insecurity in almost all the states of this country. Where they can be talking about a banditry. I can be here, I can press a button now on a drone. I will be seeing what is happening at Osasnoba or the boundary between Edo and Ondo State. I will be seeing the movement of vehicles. I can zoom to see the number of a vehicle that is at Osasnoba. Okay. Or even at Owo. If I have a drone that have the capacity to travel from here to Owo, and they are available. So if somebody is in the forest, like this a forest reserve, you put it and program it. Comb this forest for me from Akure Road to Auchi Road. All the camps of kidnappers and terrorists or whatever in the forest. You will be seeing it. The location you can use to get to where they are, you will be seeing it. We have the means, but nobody has done that. Yet you want to go to the United Nations to go and be a permanent member there. Right. We conduct election in Nigeria here. Instead of conducting election and be seeing the results immediately to know who the winner is, they will say they have to vote at polling unit. Why can't you declare the result at polling unit and let everybody go home? Then you declare the result. You take the result from there. You say you are going to World Collation Center. Between the polling unit and World Collation Center,
a lot happens.
The result may have been altered. Then from what the collation center, you say you are going to local government collation center. From there to senatorial collation center. And at the end of the day, discover that elections that bring our people to positions of authority, whether executive or legislative arm of government, they are elections that lack legitimacy. That the procedure through which our leaders are elected is very questionable. Some of our leaders, not all. Now, is it this kind of people that want to get a permanent seat at the United Nations? We have seen people's rights being violated here and there. Security forces that are supposed to protect life, you see them arresting people. I saw one man that day, he said that Tokoro Joshua, some people brought a vehicle. The vehicle was not numbered, and there was no description of the vehicle. So people just, they just stopped him. He was using Uber, and then they carried one young man. They dragged the young man out. It was your station that showed it. They dragged the young man out. Before you knew what was happening, they carried the young man away when he was trying to video them. They collected his phone, collected his papers, and left. That is the one that was able to gain access to television station to explain the story. There are so many other people like that, other on the highway, in various towns and cities in Nigeria. Is it this kind of country that say they want to go to United Nations? Is it the injustices that we see here you want to go and perpetrate there? Is it the fraudulent election that you are doing here that you want to go and do there? Is it lack of good governance that we are seeing here that you want to go and show there? I see governors, I see presidents leaving Nigeria. Our own president, this present president, another president. They travel outside this country. When they get there, you see them, they see the kind of life that people are living in France, in other countries. They will come to this country and not replicate the same thing, even where the money is there. Recently, our own governor traveled to Europe and other places to call on investors to come and invest in Edo State. I pray that what the governor saw there, what he has been seen there before, he should have the courage to put them in Edo State. He should start with security. Because if there's no security of life and property, there will be food insecurity because our people cannot go to farm. Whether from here to Okpela, from here to Agenipode, from here to Olugbo, from here to all the boundary between Edo and other states. So if Nigeria it is true that Nigeria has tried to embark on peacekeeping in Rwanda, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and some other places, Congo. Good attempt. It is true that Nigeria has supported other countries like South Africa, Namibia, and other countries to get independent. Good effort. It is true that Nigeria has been at the forefront of making Africa to be a better place for us to live in, but it must start from home, so that if we have a permanent seat at the United Nations, we know that those who are going to represent us there will actually represent us well, because we are having serious crises with recruitment processes in our country.
So would you say that perhaps at 80, one of the biggest challenges facing the United Nations is the fact that member nations are not even respecting the ideals for which the organization was set up in the first place?
When you say member nations are not respecting the ideas, or they don't have regard for the ideas, I agree with you. Number one, before I go into the details of that one, when I was in secondary school, as I was growing up, I noticed that Nigeria was referred to as a frontline state because of the battle in Southern Africa. Then Southern Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, was under colonial rule. Then South Africa as a republic was under apartheid. Now Nigeria had to commit resources and work with other states that were around those countries to ensure that the countries were decolonized and Africans were presiding over those countries. Today, Nigerians are in South Africa and they are being attacked by young South Africans in the name of xenophobia. The question is it that these young people were not told the role that Nigeria played in bringing apartheid to an end and the granting scholarship and other opportunities to South Africans when they were being oppressed in their own land by apartheid policy? Why I use that one as a background is because of the question that you asked me. The first way to answer the question, let's go to Russia. The Russian Federation is now the leading country of the Commonwealth of Independent States, countries of the former USSR.
Okay.
That is now taking the place of USSR.
Okay.
Now, there are leaders. There were leaders in the USSR who were committed to the ideals of the United Nations. One, Joseph Stalin, before he died. Two,
but that may just be because many of these leaders are no longer alive to drive some of these ideas. That's why it looks like things are falling apart according to the book written by Chino Achebe. Right now, but Neville, I have to pause it there because I have another guest who is on standby. I'm sure we can have this conversation again to look at the United Nations and its impact on global challenges. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.